from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign leader needs time to return all US land back to their rightful owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast. Techno-communism will win.
Welcome back to the Techno-Communism Show. It's a lovely Sunday evening. I'm about a block from my house. A lot of times when I want to record this video blog and I don't want to be in the apartment anymore, I'll walk out through the back alley. I'm sitting on top of a couch cushion that I drag from my house. And I'll walk out through the back alley and sit in this little parking lot. It's not that nice, but it's kind of secluded and it's a half a block really from my house. But I forgot I use this Chromebook, which is a piece of crap. And it doesn't have a dedicated application for cameras for some stupid reason, or I haven't found it. So I have a plugin that works on Google Chrome, which requires internet access. So then I had to walk half to open the app, not to record. So then I had to walk half the alleyway back to open this app. Well, I'm going to talk about the concept of revolutionary goals quite broadly in this talk, and talk about a show that I watched that I wasn't too impressed by, and some other people that I'm not too impressed by. First and foremost, among the people that I'm not too impressed by is people that are carrying around a lot of conservative baggage. In this case, the subject of social chauvinists, patriotic socialists comes up. These are people who are carrying some conservative baggage, but call themselves communists and revolutionary communists in some cases. They're not well liked by most Marxist-Leninists because these are the precise archetype person that starts in the 1930s in Germany and thinks they're kind of socialist adjacent, and ends up being a full-blown Nazi a few years later. That's the trajectory of conservative baggage and chauvinism particularly. So that's not good. And so there's if you spend any time on communist social media, which I don't necessarily recommend unless you're, maybe you're making literature and sharing things to do with techno-communism, then I might give you a pass. But if you spend any time on that, on Marxist Twitter and so forth, you'll learn that this is a recurring theme and a hot button issue. Somebody will say, I like Trump, but I'm a communist. And somebody else will say, you're not a communist, you're a real son of a bitch. And the conversation might be a little more involved than that, but that's basically it. My problem is with the people who say you're a real son of a bitch, not for using colorful language. I shouldn't be using that sort of language, the language of the male oppressor, and neither should you, so I'll apologize for that. Because these people don't uniformly themselves represent revolutionary communism to the extent that these people that they dislike do. So the MAGA communist says, we're going to change the world, and I'm a MAGA communist, and he's got a hammer and sickle in his bio and so forth. And some of the things that he says are dumb, but nevertheless he is saying that thing, I'm going to change the world. And then the person who is criticizing him, not always, not even in a majority of cases, but maybe 30% of cases, does not have a hammer and sickle in their bio. And so you can see why this would maybe be a little bit problematic if you believe that the world is dying, which it is. You're acting appropriately to prevent capitalism's climate apocalypse from occurring, which you should be doing. And then you recognize that a humane and sustainable economic system is the only answer. Everything else, reform efforts will fall short, or they will be stymied. A popular groundswell of a massive scale is required to change these systems in the fascist West. And so if you don't have that profile of saying, I'm a revolutionary. Yeah, so what? I'm a revolutionary. I believe in revolution, and this is what needs to happen. And when And when the time comes, I will be fighting at your side. And I will be spending a time figuring out how to do that in the meantime, and hopefully working with you to that end. If you're not doing those things, are you better than the MAGA communist? Just because you've isolated this one thing. Almost everybody has, it's not an excuse, but almost everybody has a crap ton of conservative baggage. I can't find a single communist, hardly, who doesn't have some kind of conservative baggage, maybe not on the order of magnitude of being an incipient, latent Nazi, but there's still some stuff there. So you should be repping that. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about why this is a problem. I used to know someone, I won't say their name, partly because I'm not sure if they're still alive. Somebody that I met in techno-futurist circles, who is a person who wasn't living well at the time, maybe, kind of stumble down drunk, fall down drunk, sort of. And I'm on the wagon, so I'm not the most patient person when it comes to people drunkenly calling me, which this person is doing a lot. But one thing that separates this person from most other drunks that you will meet, and I hope that this person is still alive, is that they had worked in different subfields of artificial intelligence and computer science. They worked on some startups, and they were very interested in those things, kind of obsessed, considering the level of work that they were doing at the time and analysis they were doing at the time. But they also knew a lot of people who had worked in these areas, either by kind of following them and interacting with them on social media, or having actually known them in the real world. And I don't know why I'm talking about this person, except that even though this person's kind of a fascist sympathizer and weirdo, that was somebody that I had a lot of conversations with, and I hope that they're alive, because I lost touch with them not too long after the coronavirus, and I haven't seen their stuff. I don't go in the same crypto-fascist tech haunts that this person would frequent. And some of the people that this person knows, a lot of them are blocked on social media, so I've kind of I've filtered out a lot of noise that I would situations where I would see this person. But I'm pretty sure, because this person was had an association with a close association with a political party that I'm not terribly fond of. It doesn't seem to have that association anymore. That something bad happened to them, and I hope that the bad thing happened is maybe they just decided to drop out of tech bullshit and dry out or something, and they're just it's all too much of a trigger, so they're not on social media anymore. That's what I hope. But I fear, because this person wasn't real fastidious about wearing masks or taking health precautions and was just a barfly, that something bad has happened to them. They were not a young person. But what am I saying? Why am I saying this to do with the previously discussed MAGA communism stuff? Well, this person introduced me to somebody who is at least as bad of a person, but a much more polished pseudo-intellectual, probably about as bad of a person when I met them, named Daniel Schmattenberger, who is a kind of AI pundit. And this is somebody who, at the time, I had a show called the Futurist New Deal podcast, and I was sometimes interviewing people like this. So I kind of started talking to them to see if we were going to hit it off and maybe do something like this together. We didn't really hit it off. So fast forward 3 years, and I'm thinking, oh, Schmattenberger's in a lot of my feeds lately, because he's going on podcasts and talking about things that are of particular interest to me, the AI takeoff as it relates to human affairs. So I said, you know what, maybe he's not as big of a jerk-off as he was when I met him, because these almost all tech people are like this. They don't have that much to say, so they use a lot of purple prose. Like that Einstein quote, you should be able to say what you need to say in about 20 words in a way that people will understand it. An ordinary person will understand it, and not another kind of like pseudo-intellectual simp who specifically wants to hear a lot of jargon. But that's the way most tech people are, and this guy is a pretty good example of that. So I watched his show today. He was interviewed, and a 3-hour show. I think I would listen to about an hour and a half of it. And he hasn't gotten better. he's still a pseudo-intellectual. He does have a pretty solid understanding of certain things to do with artificial intelligence. Let's say this: if you're following somebody, like I made this distinction on maybe the last show or second to last show between somebody who is an AI researcher who's worked for a fascistic concern and maybe is more capitalist friendly than they should be, and contrasted that persona to, say, Peter Diamandis, who is somebody who also talks about tech accelerationism, but it's kind of pretty hard to look at what he does and not see that that's right-wing propaganda, and not really a person who is literally building something and then trying to talk about it, figure everything out in their head. And what's Schmattenberger? I mean, I don't recall exactly his background off the top of my head, but he's definitely a little more Diamandis than the misguided worker bee that I described. And he'll say a bunch of things that are critical of hypercapitalism and late-stage capitalism, and then he'll kind of walk almost all of them back a little bit. And almost none of it is built around the solution, which is the ending of private wealth. If we don't end private wealth in the Western world, this planet will die, because American-style capitalism is killing this planet, because American imperialism is forcing everyone to accept that unfortunate situation. And we've had, in the last week, we've had 4 of the hottest days on record consecutively. It's mind-boggling that all of the hottest days that have ever occurred on Earth occurred one after another, getting progressively worse. So that's a world that's dying, right? That's a world that's dying. And Schmattenberger will say some of this stuff, and then he really won't. He talked particularly a little bit about one thing I'm remembering that he said about hypercapitalism. He described how AI and hypercapitalism could help us mediate some problems, which I agree with, and also could make the problems worse by what hypercapitalism is already doing. In this week, when there was the hottest temperatures on record, worse and worse and worse by each progressing day, a dizzying occurrence. In this week, something also happened that's not quite as newsworthy, and shouldn't be newsworthy at all, because it shouldn't fucking happen at all, which is that some international shipping high was also hit. So people are buying more crap from Amazon.com and sending it all around the world and so forth than ever before. So people are looking at this world is dying and saying, oh, this world's dying, and changing exactly nothing in what they're doing, and also making no attempt to change the economic system either. And that sounds like Daniel Schmattenberger to me, making no attempt to really change anything, being sort of able to isolate the problems, and then doing this sort of false devil's advocate thing where you say, well, this is a problem, this is a problem of hypercapitalism, but what if it's not a problem? And that pretty well describes almost every tech person, right? Reluctant hypercapitalist who's just not reluctant enough to not actually to stop fucking being a hypercapitalist. Maybe that's a nice night. I'll read a little article. Well, this is a bit that imagine this fellow Schmattenberger would probably get pretty jazzed up about, and almost every two-faced tech piece of shit like that probably would get pretty jazzed up about. I don't think it's real good news, but quantum computers could slash the energy use of cryptocurrencies. And sometimes when a headline says could, and it's pretty clear that it's a speculative, more speculative emerging technology, we don't have a time frame for it, understand that that's doing labor to take pressure off some industry. So there's an awful lot of propaganda in the United States. It's almost all propaganda, and a lot of it is greenwashing capitalism. And this is a headline that sounds like greenwashing capitalism to me. Mining cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin could be done using quantum computers, cutting their electricity use by 90%. Alex Wilkins, June 20th. Quantum computers could be used to mine existing currencies, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, or future more efficient ones, slashing their electricity use according to two analyses. Cryptocurrencies that rely on a proof of work method perform computationally intense calculations to produce new coins and certify transactions at great cost. Energy cost, that is. Some networks have moved to less power hungry techniques like Ethereum's proof of stake. Oh, yeah, there's a paywall. I forgot there was a paywall. That's why I didn't read this whole article before. Yeah, well, they're definitely selling you a bill of goods then in more than one sense. This, oh, yeah, so I remember this bit from, ChatGPT, a fascist company, was just having a conversation with a few people about how they're fascist. And it came up in the course of a Twitter conversation where a GPT prompt, which can be faked or doctored, even not being faked, to say almost anything. It's just a screenshot of something. But a ChatGPT prompt basically said that they would choose fascism over communism if they absolutely had to make a choice, which is not surprising to me. I could share the link that discusses this at a little more length. But you should look at OpenAI, ChatGPT, Microsoft now, and before as just becoming this fascist propaganda outlet, in my view. Because I've said this a few times on the show. You say to ChatGPT, "The world's dying, planet's dying, man. It's so hot." That's not just a weird weather thing. That's indicative of capitalism's climate apocalypse. What should I do about that? Should I be concerned? ChatGPT says, sure, you should be concerned. I'll talk about the problem at some length, although not really in the way that they probably should. And then you say, okay, so I want to stop that from happening. And they say, well, be careful, don't do anything illegal, because actually stopping bad things from happening is illegal. Doing bad things is not illegal, but stopping bad things from happening is pretty illegal. So don't do that. And you say, oh, okay, well, that sucks, but you're the boss, you're the great brain. So then you say, hey, ChatGPT, I want to start a business. And they say, oh, great. And as long as you might be describing the world's most ecocidal business model, which many exist and are still in practice, unfortunately. But as long as it's not illegal, ChatGPT will help you with that till the cows come home. ChatGPT won't help you stop people from killing the planet, and will discourage you from any such thing. But ChatGPT will help you to kill the planet. As long as you don't say, I'm going to kill the planet. As long as you just say, we'll lose an environment. Well, whatever you're working on has an environmental impact. It's applied, but as long as you're not talking about that, it's not even going to come up. So speaking of paywalls, all that's to say that ChatGPT pulled a product feature that was quite versatile and helping people do some work. The feature of allowing GPT-4, which people are paying to use, to go offline and do stuff. Or rather to go online and do stuff to gather material and bring it back into the conversation. Something it's not too difficult for it to do, but something that's generally not allowed to do. And the reason that they are not allowing you fine workers to use that versatile feature that might help you in your business is because they have to protect the almighty paywall. Because somebody could use ChatGPT to go to New Scientist and get this whole article, and then have it reposted on ChatGPT. So they don't want you to ever circumvent predatory for-profit operations that are killing the planet in any way. So they won't make too many concessions to you, but they'll make concessions to that. So yeah, that's some OpenAI bullshit that was in the news. OpenAI is in the news because it's proving to be kind of a bubble, I guess, in the sense that it's still in widespread use, but the idea that everybody was going to be using it was going to replace the search engine or change people's lifestyles in the hundreds of millions, it seems to be leveling off, and it's starting to perhaps be viewed as more of a novelty. I still would encourage you to use products like this and open source products that are not fascistic as they become available. Ars Technica has something to say on that subject. ChatGPT users dropped for the first time as people turn to uncensored chatbots. Yeah, so that's kind of a problem. As not everybody is an avowed anti-fascist, but if over and over your chatbot is saying fascistic things, you're like, well, I was asking you a real question, and you're saying State Department propaganda. Fuck you. Use something else. Um, so that's a little bit of what's going on here. According to Ashley Bellinger, data shows GPT use decreased by 10% from May to June. OpenAI's immensely popular chatbot is starting to lose users for the first time, the Washington Post reports. According to data from SimilarWeb, ChatGPT's mobile and desk traffic worldwide decreased by nearly 10% from May to June, and another firm reported that the iPhone apps have steadily dipped since they peaked in early June. Earlier this year, ChatGPT set a record for attracting the fastest growing user base in history. Many tech companies, most prominently Google, immediately sought to replicate ChatGPT's success, but ours noted at the time that technology adoption rates have generally quickened over the past few decades. So they observed that this quick adoption rate might be more a feature of a connected world than a feature of the utility of this product, or they were hesitant to say that this is an incredibly useful product. Um, this fall off seems to be pretty specifically in response to the fascist quality of Microsoft slash OpenAI organizations. So, um, um, yeah, this is the tech is kind of worthless in this respect. Almost all of it is steeped in some kind of imperialist or abusive capitalist kind of business. And so sometimes a thing that should have been made, or almost overwhelmingly things that should have been made, are not made. And sometimes you'll see an example of a thing that could have been made to work, but it was kind of decided that would be better to just operate within the fascist system like a good little droog rather than making that thing work. Um, uh, Almost instantly, okay. ChatGPT may have similarly benefited from increased adoption rates this week. Meta launched a Twitter rival called Threads. Despite significant drawbacks, easily beat ChatGPT's record. Yeah, so a lot of people downloaded Threads. That may be because the people at Twitter are fucking around a lot, like putting usage limits on things, seeming to be doing weird fascistic things for a while since Elon Musk, the CIA megass who does nothing but weird fascistic things, acquired the company at a huge expense, about 3 times what it was worth, many, many, many billions of dollars wasted. Um, and and since then, this company has been in danger of perhaps losing its lion's share of the market in the marketplace of ideas, and probably rightly so, as it's become more fascistic over time. This is a thing I don't encourage you to use Twitter or Threads, not because I just think that you should touch grass, which you should, or because you should be organizing things in the real world, most particularly revolutionary action, finding folks who will work with you to stop this planet from being killed. That is a real thing that you can be doing anywhere you go, and but not just because of that, but because these are both for-profit organizations, which is bad enough, or for-profit organizations in the imperial core. That's even worse. For-profit organizations, more or less controlled, owned, and operated by CIA mega assets. Elon Musk is a career greenwashing CIA mega asset who has propped up businesses that should be put a stop to if we don't want to die. On the other hand, Mark Zuckerberg is a CIA mega asset who's toppled governments on behalf of the United States fascist organs in the form of Cambridge Analytica, Cambridge Analytica, and other similar shenanigans. Of all the people who should start a company that gets a new app that gets 100 million users in a couple of days, maybe it shouldn't be either of them, right? And these things should be open source. The trouble of, this is a fact that's been stated by many, many, many people. Why didn't social media exist before 2007 in any real way? Because the technology to curate those news feeds and interactions didn't really exist in quite the same way. So But if we are really looking at artificial superintelligence in 18 months, 36 months, 72 months, artificial general intelligence in that time frame, I should think that if human beings were not a bunch of stubborn jackasses and elitist pigs, we would maybe be doing things like creating open source alternatives to fascist products. That would be nice. Well, I'm not going to read the rest of this article because I'm not as interested in the nuances of social media companies. Also, because I accidentally closed it. Well, let's see. I'll read a tweet that I sent a bunch of people because it has to do with this 4 days of the highest temperatures ever, getting worse and worse, which is a disturbing thing to happen, and hopefully it will wake people up to the problems of a hell world that we have built. And by we, I mean capitalists and people who acquiesce to capitalists, which is you, unfortunately. Maybe you're one of the 1 million people who doesn't really do that. If you're an anarchist or a libertarian or a person of the capitalist or liberal class, then you're not one of those 1 million people who doesn't do that. You're a piece of shit upholding the fascists who are killing the planet. So this is a critique of Western communists, not those others who are worse. And I said this, and some people responded to it. So they were not. They didn't feel it was a fair characterization, but I'm going to stand by it. I'm going to read it to you now. Half of Western communists are climate change deniers. When confronted with dying oceans, unlivable heat waves, and all sorts of terrifying weather effects, and then presented with the things to stop that from getting worse, you, Western communists, act like that's a lesser matter compared to your more pure and perfect long-term revolutionary plans, which cannot be enacted at this time because that would be adventurism. And that wasn't exactly, I editorialized a little at the end, but that's more or less the state of white folks, the revolutionary-minded white folks in the U.S. They're virtually useless. They have very little real revolutionary potential. And I'll look at one more bit. This is from CNET. I wore the future with a brain-connected AR VR headset. The next frontier might be neurotech. OpenBCI is. Let's learn about OpenBCI. Maybe they're not a piece of shit like OpenAI, who is actually not open source, really open at all, and also highly fascistic. OpenBCI's Galea headset, along with advances in assistive controls, points to a wild, wearable road ahead. This is from Scott Stein, July 6th. The prototype version of OpenAI's Galea, a sensor-studded brain sensing AR VR headset array. So it's got a pretty typical VR element on the front, which is kind of chunky. It doesn't look like great AR because it's got a big, fat, hot thing. I played a lot of VR games and VR activities of a similar kind, and I can tell you that you sweat your ass off, and it's not that great. And it's a main reason, aside from disorientation and bad feeling, uneasy stomach things, why people don't use this as much as they should. So I used to play a game called Gorn. When I was young, I sometimes would get in fist fights. And then at a certain age, I realized I shouldn't get in fist fights anymore. But then at another age, I realized that there were games that could allow me to beat holy hell out of people in virtual reality with no consequence at all. So I enjoyed that. So I played this game called Gorn until it fried my VR headset because it wasn't a very good VR headset, and also, but I was not happy about that. I was very angry at Microsoft for selling me that crappy VR headset that got fried by a game. But other VR activities that I've done a lot like this, it's hot. And this little guy looks like a face hugger. It's got that chunky element, and then it's got a brain-computer interface element attached to that, kind of looking like a face hugger. I saw the best quality mixed reality headset with an interface controlled using my fingers, Apple's Vision Pro. About a few months before its announcement, I saw something perhaps even wilder. Clips on my ears, a crown of rubbery tip sensors nestled into my hair, and a face mask lowered in front of my eyes. Suddenly I was looking at my own brainwaves in VR and moving things around with only tiny movements of my facial muscles. I was testing OpenAI's, OpenBCI's Galea. Not OpenAI, fuck that. The future of VR and AR is changing steadily, but inputs remain a challenge. For now, it's territory moving from physical controllers to hand-to-eye tracking. But there are deeper possibilities beyond that, and they're neural. I support that. I don't even know how to describe my experience trying the Galea headset because, well, it's a platform to explore what happens next, and my experiences in neural tech are still embryonic. OpenBCI, a Brooklyn-based company building research tools for non-invasive brain-computer interface technology, has been adapting its own sensory systems into a mixed reality headset called Galea, which will become available later this year. I tried a prototype version of Galea at their office, curious about how BCIs could work in AR and VR. Yeah, and they should be working in AR, right? Because VR just means fat, chunky thing making you hot. AR has some products now that are not fat, chunky things. So you can play Gorn wearing just regular sunglasses and not sweating like a maniac. I was also wondering what the future could hold for our interactions with computers in general. A new sensor platform for VR and AR. I've tried more simplified sets of EEG sensors focused on a particular visual task. NextMind allowed me to focus on particular spots to trigger actions. For example, NextMind was acquired by Snap last year. It felt almost like a mouse click with my mind. But OpenBCI's Galea is a complete mix of all sorts of sensors: EEG, EMG, EDA, PPG, and eye tracking. It's an acronym festival. Okay. And now we're going to have overviews of all of these brain-computer interface elements. I'm not going to read all of them, but you should read about them. So I'll say go to cnet.com, even though they're for profit and sometimes somewhat shitty. This story by Scott Stein, I Wore the Future with Brain-Computer, a brain-connected AR VR headset, is one to check out. I'll read the last paragraph. Right now, it's enough of a struggle to convince people of the value of AR and VR and wearable visual tech. It's maybe a dubious value overall. They do, I really need to be able to have the sensation of killing a gladiator in the ring. That's important because I need to be trained to murder people with greater efficiency. That's not important. But I believe that this type of interface that's described here in the brain-computer elements particularly could lead to a kind of different human experience and connectivity. It could, perhaps more importantly, begin to reorient the human species into a little more orderly fashion, besides just using this sort of thing could itself create a super intelligent subset of the population who will maybe guide the rest of humanity to stop just being destructive, homicidal chimps, or the mere fact of its existence, even if it's not commonly adapted to such a degree that humanity becomes itself a superorganism, could nevertheless push people in that direction. And certainly, maybe, well, I'd like to think that that's true. I'd ultimately like to see that humanity becomes hive mind collectivists because of technology like this. And I would like our species to transcend these insects that we are and become super intelligent and better. This is not just something that I would equate with intelligence. I would equate it with a higher plane of existence.